With the Missouri Firearms Coalition, joined with former state rep Jared Taylor. Guys, a major day today in Jefferson City. Major fight over our legislation to ban red flag gun seizures here in Missouri. You're not going to believe, well, some of you might believe what happened. We're going to wait here for a moment, let the crowd build up. You guys can come on in here, give us an audio check, make sure you guys can hear us okay. You have to hear what happened today, and it's going to make your blood absolutely boil. So when you come on in, give us a comment, give us a thumbs up, check our audio for us, guys, and we're going to begin this podcast here momentarily. Jared, red flag laws, you were in the House for a long time. Red flag laws are not a new threat here in Missouri. The idea is that they're going to take away firearms from somebody who has never been convicted of a crime in a court of law. That's not new, but the threat we're facing right now, both here in Missouri and across the country, is different because now we have Joe Biden's legislation from last year, which allocates almost $800 million to the DOJ to bribe states into passing red flags. It's a whole new threat right now in Missouri.
Yeah, not only bribe states, but bribe municipalities. And I think that's kind of what we're facing right now is, what happens when one of these municipalities in Missouri decides, you know what, we're going to try and implement red flag laws behind the backs, behind the will of the state legislature. But we've seen red flag laws from red states all across the country. For some reason, Republicans think that this isn't an infringement. But you know what? They're in for a wake-up call because it absolutely is an infringement. You're taking someone's rights away without not only just not convicting them of a crime, but even saying that they've committed a crime. They haven't even been charged, right? So I mean, it's a huge problem that we're seeing across the United States, and these soft Republicans are saying, you know what, maybe we should consider this.
Exactly. And so, guys, our bill, or one of our two main bills this year, is designed to preempt that threat from Joe Biden by banning red flags here in Missouri altogether up front. And it says that before someone's firearms can be confiscated, they have to be convicted of a disqualifying offense, period. The bill also says that the state may not receive federal money for the purpose of banning or enforcing, rather, red flag laws. It is the next step in our fight for gun rights here in Missouri. Jared, it wasn't a surprise to see the Democrats lose their mind, have the media lose their mind, have all these radical left organizations attack the bill. But today, for those who haven't heard, I see the crowd's built up here now. For today, for those who have not heard, Senate Republicans in the General Laws Committee joined the radical left to vote down SB 10 today in the General Laws Committee. Jared, you experienced kind of betrayal a lot during your years in the House, but to have Republicans on the floor vote no on SB 10 with the Democrats, man, it made my blood boil today.
Yeah, I mean, it's just beyond frustrating, and the comments that were made as justification to vote against it, just beyond me. I guess I'm not surprised though. Let's be honest. We've had fights like this where we've had to pull people along. MOFC members have literally knocked on doors, made phone calls and emails, and pushed these Republicans over the line. And that's why we've been able to get this stuff done. And you know what? We need it again. Because we've got a problem where you've got Republicans voting with Democrats to kill good legislation, to kill something that was going to protect Second Amendment rights in Missouri.
So the main problem from today, the main backstabber today, is Lincoln Hough. Senator Lincoln Hough is well known to the gun rights community, well known to conservatives in general. The guy is an absolute trash ball. He is a radical leftist masquerading as a Republican. This is Senator Hough right here. You can just see this guy doesn't give a damn about anybody else but himself. It's very clear. We're going to read some of the comments that he made in committee earlier today. You guys, you're not going to believe it. But Lincoln Hough is the Republican who was a no vote today on the floor, joining Senator Beck and Razor, two other radical leftists in the legislature. Jared, Senator Cierpiot also skipped out today. Talk about this from your inside perspective. When a bill comes down to a vote, literally comes down to a vote in committee, when someone just doesn't show up, that's not an accident. That doesn't just happen by mistake. That's a clear action taken to advance the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, when you see that happen, they clearly are taking a walk on the vote and not wanting to put their name one way or another. And so that I mean, that's the only explanation. The Senate makes it really easy. All you have to do in the Senate is just note to the chairman or to
Right.
their person how you want to vote on a bill, because they know each vote that they're taking that day. They don't have to stick around for the committee. They don't have to wait for the votes. They just have to
Right.
let the chairman know this is how I'm going to vote today, and then they can leave. Unlike the House, where you actually have to be present in order to vote. So they make it really easy in the Senate. That could have easily been done, but it wasn't. It was clearly they took a walk on it, and they killed the legislation. They worked with the Democrats to make it a tie, which killed the legislation in committee. But I mean, there's other ways that we can bring this back, that we will. And I'm
going to ask you more about that in a few minutes. I want to get to some of these quotes here from Senator Hough, but for those who are curious, this is Senator Cierpiot. This guy, this ragey old madman, is way past his prime. He's been an enemy to gun rights for a very long time. And so when you talk to him, if you live in his district, if you want to talk to this guy, and he says, "Oh, I didn't vote against the bill," that's an absolute lie, because by not showing up, he intentionally sided with Lincoln Hough and Senate Democrats to make sure there was not enough votes to pass the bill. I mean, there's only 2 Democrats on the entire committee. There's only 2 Democrats on this entire committee. If Cierpiot would have showed up and would have been a yes vote, we'd have had a 4-3 vote. We would have got past Lincoln Hough's efforts to sabotage the bill. So these are the 2 Republicans who worked to kill the bill. But I want to go beyond that, because, yeah, everybody can vote the way they want, supposedly, but you don't sabotage a gun bill in Missouri in committee in the Senate without having some permission from your Senate leadership team. And this is a very big problem that we have here in Missouri, where we have very good, ferocious pro-gun champions in the Senate, but they're not in the majority, Jared. You had the same problem when you were in the House, at least for a bunch of the years you were there. You had a core group of guys and gals who were incredibly pro-gun,
right?
But if you don't control the chamber, it gets to be a real problem.
Yeah, we saw this last year from the floor leader, Dean Plocker, who's now the speaker, and trying to kill legislation over in the House and not advancing it. And when you have someone that is doesn't support the Second Amendment, who is behind the scenes working against it, that's a problem. And that's why we've got to push back on it. That's why we got to get out for elections. That's why we've got to vote. Because we've got people like that in Jeff City who are, like you said, masquerading around as Republicans when truly their colors are Democrats.
So Lincoln Hough today, I mean, again, when you see this guy's face, this is the guy who drips with condescension. Clearly, he wasn't beaten enough on the playground by people who had more common sense. Here's a guy who's just asking, to be put in his place, politically speaking, for the humor impaired. This is a guy today who he doesn't just sneak in there, Jared, and vote no and slither out the door like the little coward snake he is. The quotes he has were so incredible that, frankly, I was stunned that he dared utter them. Now, granted, he got reelected again last year, so he's good for the next 4 years. He's termed out. He cannot run again for the state Senate. Thankfully, but everybody in Jeff City believes they're 2 heartbeats away from the White House. Let's be honest, and so everyone's contemplating their next statewide run. And after what gun owners did to statewide candidates, RINOs, last year, you would think that people like Hough would have realized that either he's as dumb as he looks, or B, he has no desire to run statewide. First, I want to give a shout out to Senator Bill Eigel, the lead sponsor of this bill. In committee today, Bill said, "I don't trust the government. I have hesitancy about the government and empowering them to the degree to take gun rights away from people, rights given to us by God." So very, very strong quote from Senator Eigel, who has been fantastic on this bill. And here comes little Lincoln. Lincoln says, "I think it's disheartening, quite frankly, to even be having this conversation 2 days after what happened in Nashville." Now, Jared, I think anybody with a brain, could look what happened in Nashville, and it's very obvious what happened. Innocent children, innocent teachers were targeted by an armed, psychotic, transgender madman, whatever I forget what he or she was originally. And the only way that person was put down was when Nashville Metro PD arrived and put 4 shots of 223 into that psycho's chest. And the only way we're going to stop madmen with firearms is to have good people with firearms. But Lincoln Hough clearly does not believe that in any shape or form. It's disgusting stuff. I mean, the next quote here, he says, Jared, this is the one that got my blood absolutely boil. He said that, quote, if a red flag law is crafted in the right way, that doesn't infringe on someone's constitutional rights. And he added, quote, having a few parameters in place that keeps kids safe and keeps our community safe is not a bad thing. Jared, am I correct? This guy is openly calling for red flag gun seizures here in Missouri.
Oh yeah. I think he's absolutely saying that we should pass red flag, not that we should ban them and stop them. He is calling for us to pass them today in Missouri. I wouldn't be surprised if he filed the bill.
Yes.
He's that openly supporting them, which is just incredible. I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, I was in the House with Senator Hough. I was in the House when he became a senator. It's not surprising.
But I think what's important for gun owners to remember then, and a lot of our members know very well, the real war here in Jeff City is not the Democrats versus the Republicans. It's the conservatives versus the RINOs. And so for anybody who's watching, though, who's not familiar with this, it is not enough that Missouri is a red state, because that's the problem with red states, Jared. If we don't keep active, if we don't stay on our guard, red states have a tendency of becoming purple states, and purple states end up becoming blue states. And a lot of people think that Missouri is immune from this, but that's simply a mistake. When a guy like Senator Hough can stand up in committee and openly say this, that should be a warning to gun owners across the state. The anti-gun Republican contingent here in Jeff City, they don't fear gun owners. At least the ones who are termed out, they don't fear gun owners. In fact, Hough goes on to say, he says, I think these guys have bastardized what the Second Amendment is. Jared, I don't know who you think he's talking about.
He's talking about me.
He's talking about you?
Yeah,
he's talking about the Missouri Firearms Coalition. Right. He's talking about me. He's talking about Bill Eigel. He means all the people who have fought side by side for so many years in the state capitol to advance gun rights. And then just to be clear, by extension, folks, he means you.
Yeah.
He means every single gun owner in Missouri who knows that if we lose our gun rights, if we lose our right to keep and bear arms, we're never going to get them back. You people are the ones who, according to this arrogant bastard, have bastardized what the Second Amendment is.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, I'm a hunter. Yeah, right. The rumor is all he knows how to hunt is a fifth of liquor and somebody else's wife. That's the rumor in Jeff City. I'm going to keep on going. I'm a hunter. I've got a full safe of guns at my house. Yeah, right. But I don't think that everyone, listen to the condescension. Listen to the arrogance in this next quote. But I don't think that everyone on the planet needs to just be openly carrying and doing whatever they want to all the time. These guys have gone too far. So this is a guy who clearly wants to not only, pass red flags. If this guy has his way, Republican, RINO, backstabber Lincoln Hough would roll back SEPA in a heartbeat. He would roll back stand your ground law in a heartbeat. He would roll back constitutional carry in a heartbeat. Yep. And not only would he push for red flag laws, this guy would obviously want to register every firearm in the state with universal background checks, the same bill that Democrats traditionally have filed over and over here in Jeff City. Again, the issue here is not Democrats versus Republicans. It's these backstabbing weasels, Jared, versus conservatives. And that should make everybody here in Missouri just be outraged with where things stand tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great point. Not only does he talk bad against Senator Eigel, our bill sponsor on this. Not only does he talk bad against the bill that we're trying to pass, to stop red flag laws, but he goes further. I mean, he attacks every single gun owner in the state, and then he goes further and says that they went too far. He says that we've gone too far in the state of Missouri and that we need to roll these things back. That is an attack on every single gun owner. And frankly, we can't stand for it. I mean, we've got to do something about it. We've got to tell them, that we're here, that we're not going anywhere, that he's wrong on this issue, and wrong on Second Amendment issues. I don't know. I guess I'm just, I'm glad that Bill Eigel is there, and guys like him and Rick Bratton and all the other ones that are going to stand up against Lincoln on the floor, continuing to do the right thing every day because it's the right thing to do.
Guys, if you're watching this and you're like, well, what else can I do? I mean, you can contact Lincoln Hough, and we're going to give you a number to do that here in a moment. But your own state senator needs to hear from you as well as Senate leadership. And I want to be very clear on this. Number one, sure, Caleb Rowden needs to hear from you. Caleb Rowden obviously greenlit this play in the first place. You could also reach out to Senator Cindy O'Laughlin as well. She is not an enemy, but she is very powerful in the Senate. And just encourage all these senators and say, this is not acceptable. You have other procedural rules and ways you can move this bill. And just because two RINOs screwed us over today in committee, we're not going to accept this. We will hold Republicans accountable who work with the Democrats to kill our legislation. So those are some of the calls you guys could make. I have a number right here from Senator Hough. And I'm going to be honest, Jared, this is not his office phone number. So I'm just going to post this right now in the comments section. If you want to reach out to the good senator, I think I have a typo right there. Actually, I'm going to have to, I'll fix this after the feed is over. I did not, I left off one letter for the word Lincoln. But if you want to call this RINO backstabbing piece of trash, you might want to try 417-848-7902. Maybe you want to call him tonight and ask him who the hell he thinks he is, because this is the guy who's killing our gun bills and your gun rights here in Jefferson City. Now, Jared, we talked about this a minute ago. You mentioned I kind of cut you off there. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat in Jeff City. There's lots of ways to move bills. I think that a lot of times a person like Lincoln Hough hopes that by doing this, he's going to demoralize the gun base and we're all just going to just quit and go away. There's lots of ways to move bills in Jeff City as session gets towards the final third. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple avenues. Not only can the Senator Eigel or anyone else on the floor add an amendment to another bill, so they could add this exact same language to another bill that's coming through. They have other avenues of the floor leader could have their own bill that they could file, that they could push through. And then you've got the House also still working. So you've got Representative Maisie Boyd's bill that's still moving through the process. And so, we could push her to get that bill on the floor, push the speaker to make sure that it gets to the floor to get to a vote, and then over to the Senate. Or they could add amendments. So one of the things that we could do is we could add an amendment on a Senate bill. Maybe we should find a Lincoln Hough bill and add it as an amendment over in the House and send it back to him. But there are multiple ways that we could do to make sure that this bill gets across the line. But we gotta act now. I mean, we are starting to get towards the last half of the session, and so we can no longer just kind of sit to the side and wait for it to happen. We've got to start pushing these things and start pushing leadership to move these priorities.
Well, the other thing, too, is that, when we sat down to work with, Senator Eigel, Representative Boyd back in December, January on this bill draft, and when the language says that it precludes the state from receiving federal money to enforce red flag laws, at that time, a short 3.5, 4 months ago, that was a hypothetical concern.
Right.
We were trying to get in front of that to make sure that Missouri couldn't take that money to enforce red flag laws. But as we know, 5-8 weeks ago now, Missouri has already received its first $5.4 million from the DOJ to enforce red flag laws and do other things. We don't even have a red flag law here in Missouri, but already Missouri is stockpiling millions of dollars that they could use from Uncle Joe to eventually pass red flag laws. And I could see a slime ball like Lincoln Hough on the floor, maybe this session, maybe next session, maybe the next session, saying, my gosh, we're sitting on 20 million, 30 million, 40 million. Yep. But for us to unlock that money, we have to pass a red flag law.
Yeah.
And following, God forbid, another mass shooting, especially one here in Missouri. And if Missouri has a piggy bank with Joe Biden's, face on it, with tens of millions of dollars in it, if they simply pass a red flag law, anything is possible, especially given who our current Speaker of the House is in the House and leader Caleb Rowden in the Senate. This is very dangerous stuff.
Yeah, or what they could do is they could say, well, maybe we're not going to pass it on the state level because they know that that's probably not going to fly. But what they could do is say, but we're going to allow the local municipalities, if they want to do it, we're going to allow them to do it. And so I could easily see, Lincoln Hough or anybody else trying to slip something in, allowing local municipalities to do that. So we've got to be on the lookout. We've got to pay attention to what's going through these bills. And we've got to make sure that none of those little things slip through the cracks.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's already asking us in the comment section, where did that money go? I'm trying to pull up the link for it. I've got it right here. Stephanie, I think, asked that question. It says, excuse me 1 second, skimming it very quickly. The Missouri Department of Public Safety. Yes, it went to public safety. They have this money. They're sitting on it right now. We've already reached out to and had meetings with the budget chair in the House, because the budget chair has the authority to well, Jared, you phrase it better than I can. They can decide how that money is allocated. We're working to get that money redirected as well right now.
Yeah, that's right. If the budget chair knows where it's at, basically he can put a line item that money out, so that way that money isn't spent. In Missouri, the way that it works is we actually have to give them permission to spend that money, and so basically we just won't give them that spending authority. And so now that Cody is aware of it, the budget chair, we will make sure that money is lined out so they can't spend it.
There's some good comments in the comment section. I'm gonna read a couple of these here tonight. We've got Andy says, we do vote. What the candidates need is a real vetting. That's a great point, Andy. That's why MOFC works so dang hard at election time in the primaries. In fact, most people say we do our best work in the summertime every second year, because that's where we do a very thorough and exhaustive candidate survey program. And then we don't just do the survey, post it online, and call it a summer. We then spend a tremendous amount of donor dollars to go out there and targeted races, sometimes U.S. Senate races, sometimes county, state house races, everywhere in between, congressional, state Senate. And we make sure that in our targeted races, everybody knows where these candidates stand. It's made Missouri Firearms Coalition a powerhouse in the fight for gun rights. Lincoln Hough, frankly, was vetted in 2022. The guy's a slime ball. We told the whole world the guy was a slime ball. The candidate who ran against him was underfunded. And Lincoln Hough did win his election, frankly, by a lot smaller margin than anybody thought possible, Jared.
Yeah.
And so
it was a lot closer.
Yeah. That's one of those sleeper races where if it had a little more ability to do a little more program in that race, who knows what could have happened. But the issue, as always, Andy, as you said, is to vet these candidates closely. And I think the only good news, Jared, is that over the last, the last 10, 15, 20 years, there was a previous generation of gun owners who I think, and this is not not every single one, but as a class, they kind of just blindly deferred to the GOP candidate, whoever he or she was. If you're the Republican candidate, you're on our side. You're not a damn Democrat. You got my back. But those days are rapidly disappearing here in Missouri, especially because everyone now understands what we said 10 minutes ago. It's not about Republican versus Democrat. Maybe it is in a couple races in the general election cycle in October, first part of November. But the real fighting here in Missouri is always during the August primaries. And that's where MOFC members are getting more and more ferocious, more and more, I think, conditioned to know this is the fight. not
Right.
November. It's August. And if we keep doing that the right way, we're going to keep seeing more and more conservative candidates. We had a great showing in 2022. I mean, gosh, you've got major, powerful incumbents like Senator Bill White kicked out on his butt. You've got
Yep.
great champions like Jill Carter in the state Senate now. You've got this growing contingent of ferociously pro-gun members, especially in the Senate, but also now in the House as well. These freshmen are absolutely lit. And so to me, that's the optimistic side going forward, is that this is not um, some retread NRA organization that just gives all blind allegiance to the Republican candidates. We do not roll that
Right.
way. We're going to hold them accountable at election time. And frankly, Jared, it's like the funnest part of our job. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah, it's something that people ask for, like, well, hey, when are you going to do a video on this race? Because I want to know where do
Yes.
the candidates stand? They're both Republicans. I say that with air
Yeah.
quotes,
Yeah.
Republicans. But where do they stand on issues? And that's where we come in and say, look, here's where they're at. Here's where their votes have been. Here's where we get so detailed. Here's where they voted on bills in
Right.
committee. Here's bills that they've actually filed and said that here's what they support. And so that's why it's so important that you guys are paying attention to what we're doing, not only during session and taking action in session, but also what we're doing when we're not in session. What are we doing during the summer and keeping you guys
Yeah,
informed?
exactly. And so for those who are watching right now, if you're a member of the Missouri Firearms Coalition, I can't thank you enough for all that you've done to get us where we are in this point. If you're not yet a member, today is the day to get involved in this fight. There is no national organization coming to save us, Jared. You were in there for 8 years. You have discussed
Yeah.
this in video after video after video. You almost never heard from or met with a liaison from any national gun rights organization. It has always been
Nope.
state level actors, the Missouri Firearms Coalition on the ground, beating people's backsides, holding people accountable, testifying in committee, working the bills, working the process. There is no national group coming to save us. And so if you care
Right.
about gun rights and you live in Missouri and you're sending your money out of state to a national gun rights organization, it's simply not worth it. You're not saving your gun rights here in Missouri. Now, are we biased? Of course. I mean, I think the Missouri Firearms Coalition is the best gun rights fighting vehicle in the state. But Jared, again, you were in there for 8 years. You hardly ever heard from, let alone met with anybody else from the national perspective when you were leading the fight. You weren't just a passive spectator. You were the guy pushing the bills, lead sponsor for years.
Yeah. There was no one else in the Capitol, other than, maybe a small Republican club, like the county clubs, but they weren't a national gun, organization. There's no gun organization, no gun rights like Missouri Firearms Coalition. The Missouri Firearms Coalition and its members were the only ones knocking on doors, and testifying in committee, making phone calls and emails. There was nobody else.
And again, most especially of all, the only one in election time holding people accountable. It's easy to get involved in the fight for gun rights in October in Missouri. There's almost no contested races in the entire state from a general election standpoint. Maybe what, Jared, 8 to 10 races around St. Louis, 4 or 5 around Kansas City, 1 or 2 in Springfield, maybe 1 or 2 in Columbia. The fighting is always done. The political blood is always spilled in August. And at that, we've never seen help from these national organizations. And so again, I'm just going to say again in closing, for those who have not yet joined the Missouri Firearms Coalition, you got to get involved in this fight. We are going to see more Republicans betray us like Lincoln Hough did today if we don't stand up and fight back. Again, do not send your money out of state. Keep it here in the fight for gun rights right here in Jeff City. Meantime, guys, share our video with more information for you guys tomorrow. Again, as Jared said, we have a big fight in the House on this. We have other amendments we're going to file on this. The fight is not over, but this should make your blood boil, guys. Share the video. We'll keep you informed. You guys have a great night. Stay safe.